very much. Now, I want to ask you, how would you like to follow Cornel West and Nina Turner? I'm leaving, that's all. You heard the best, but I'll try. I want to thank Trey Sounds for their great music. I want to thank Haley Jenkins for her singing. I want to thank Mary Catherine Metcalf Gorlick and her husband Jason Gorlick for their comments. And I want to thank Stacy Fox for her remarks. And I want to thank, I've known Dr. Cornel West for a long, long time. And this man has been speaking truth to power for his entire life and has been educating the American people. Cornel, thanks so much for what you do. And Nina Turner and I have been around this country many times. And I think there are few people who are doing more important work than Nina, because what Nina is telling the American people, you just heard it a moment ago, is that you can't just sit back and let the people fight back. And that's the message Nina. And let me say, it gets hot here in Augusta, my God. The summertime, we'll come down here south. Let me thank you very much on such a here today. This is a pivotal and unprecedented moment in American history, and our job is to run an unprecedented campaign. And what Nina was saying is that we now have over 1 million volunteers signed up and working as we speak. Now, Donald Trump and his billionaire friends, they got a lot of money. But at the end of the day, people power defeats money power. But that is only true if people are prepared to stand up and educate and organize and rethink who you are as American citizens. Now, I don't have to tell anybody right now that you have a government and an economy that is owned and controlled by a handful of billionaire families. That's the reality. No one talks about that on TV. I know that, all right? But that is the reality. And the only way we defeat those people, the only way that the agenda for the American people gets through rather than the billionaire agenda. Now, I'm here in the beautiful state of Georgia because we intend to win the Democratic primary here in Georgia. We damn well intend to defeat, and defeat badly, the worst president in the history of the United States. But that's not all we're going to do, okay? What we are going to do, and what I believe makes this campaign unique, and where I need your help not only to win the primary, not only to win the general election, but we are about transforming this country and creating an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, I want you to do some thinking. Don't think, I'm going to be on a TV show tomorrow and they're going to ask me what's the news of the day, what happened today, what kind of tweet did Donald Trump send out. Not the issue. What we have got to do is to go into our hearts and we determine what the issues are. What kind of lives do we want to live? What are the impediments that we face? What's going on in our society? And it's not going to be the TV cameras or the front page of the newspapers. They're going to tell you that. So I want you to ask yourself, think about it. You are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And yet we have millions of Americans who are working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills in their families. How does that happen? We are living in a moment in history where for the first time in modern American history, the younger generation will have a lower standard of living than your parents. We have seen for 40 years the shrinking of the middle class. And now what we see is despite a huge increase in productivity, worker productivity, an explosion of technology, the younger generation will leave deeply in debt. Their wages, real wages they earn, will be lower than their parents, have a harder time finding a decent house. Why is that? And I want you to think about that. We have, and when you think about society, ask yourself why it is that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. I get a little bit tired of hearing from people who tell me how much they love their country, they love America, but apparently they don't love the children of this country who will become the next leadership of this country. If you are a young parent, you tell me whether you can find quality, affordable child care in Georgia or Vermont or anywhere in America. Why are we giving tax breaks to billionaires, but we can't find quality, affordable child care for working parents? Why is it that school district after school district is finding it harder and harder to find qualified teachers because the wages for teachers are so low that young people are no longer going into the teaching profession? When you and I know there is no job more important than educating our kids. So you got the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any country. You got a child care system which is dysfunctional. You got public schools all over this country that are underfunded. But then if somebody graduates college, as often as not, they're going to be deeply in debt. Now think about it for a second. Get outside of the box. We need the best educated workforce in the world. Why is it that millions of people are struggling with debts of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for the crime of what? Of getting a decent education? Frankly, that is insane, and together we're going to change that. When you think about what's going on in this country, role TV and newspapers play, who owns them, and so forth. In America today, we have more income and wealth inequality than at any time since the 1920s. 3 families own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. You hear that? Think that that is vaguely moral or that we are going to end their greed. Some of you owe money on your credit cards. Yes? You know what interest rates you're paying? You're paying 7. And then you got poor people who have to go to payday lenders where they're charged 200% interest rates. And for prescription drugs, need anyone think that's moral? You got an insurance industry. An insurance industry which ends up costing us twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other. More, including you, doctor, when you're sick. Am I right? And you're scared to death that, God forbid, you or somebody else ends up in the hospital and you come out with a $100,000 bill that you're never going to be able to pay off, while creditors and credit agencies hound you every single day. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do about it. We're going to join every other country, major country on earth, and guarantee health care to all people as a right through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Okay? Now, 4 years ago, when I came to Georgia, and I talked about health care as a human right, the establishment, whether it was the political establishment or the media establishment, they said, Bernie, you're a nice guy, but you're crazy. That was the best thing they said. Then they said some bad things. And their point was that nobody in America believes in health care for all. Well, you know what? Last poll that I saw had 70% of the American people supporting Medicare for all. But it is not just a fight for a fair economy, an economy that addresses the needs of working people. I get criticized for being radical and extreme. I am not. All that I am talking about are ideas that the vast majority of the American people support. The American people believe in Medicare for all. The American people believe that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty, and that we should raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. Not a radical idea. When I talked about it 4 years ago, people said I was a little bit nuts on that one too. Well, you should know 7 states have now gone forward to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And the U.S. House of Representatives will pass similar legislation in the next couple of months. Four years ago, I was on a national television debate, and the moderator said to me, Senator Sanders, what do you consider to be the major national security threat facing this country? And I think the moderator is climate change. And the moderator laughed. Well, they're not laughing today, because the scientific community has told us that if we don't move in an extremely aggressive manner to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel and into energy efficiency and sustainable energy, the planet we will be leaving to our kids and grandchildren will be suffering irreparable is the word, non-reversible damage. Think about that. Change being a hoax, but that he is a danger not only to this country, but to the entire world. And I look forward to being that president, who will lead the world, bring countries together, because climate change is not an American issue, it's not a Russian issue, it's not a Chinese issue, it is an issue impacting every country on earth. Now think about a world where instead of spending $1.5 trillion a year on weapons designed to kill people, we started investing in transforming our energy system. Imagine that, countries not fighting each other, but coming together to address the major crisis facing the entire planet. But it's not just a rigged economy that we are going to address. It is a corrupt political system. And let me underline the word corrupt. In America today, as a result of the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, we have billionaires buying elections, and brothers and sisters, we together will overturn Citizens United. In America today, you have cowardly governors in some place close to your home who think the only way they can win elections is by suppressing the vote. And I say to those governors in Georgia and every place else in this country, if you don't have the guts to participate in free, fair, and open elections, get the hell out of politics and get another job. And I know that Governor Abrams agrees with me. And when we talk about the major issues facing this country, we have to put on the table an extremely broken and racist criminal justice system. You got to call it the way it is. And the way it is, my friends, is that we have more people in jail in the United States right now than any other major country on earth, any other country on earth. Think about it. China, communist authoritarian country, 4 times our size. We have more people in jail than China does. That's right. So you want to hear a radical idea? This looks like a radical group. How about, instead of investing in jails and incarceration, we invest in jobs for our young people and education? My guess is it costs a hell of a lot less to send a kid to the University of Georgia than send them to jail. Let's send them to the University of Georgia. And we have not only a broken criminal justice system in terms of the number of people we have in jail, but we have a broken war on drugs system. Now, a few years ago, when some of us said that maybe it is not a great idea to be locking up hundreds of thousands of people, not locking them up, but giving criminal records to hundreds of thousands of people a year for the crime of possessing marijuana, well, 4 years ago, that was seen as a radical idea. Today ain't so radical. State after state decriminalizing or legalizing the possession of marijuana. And there are now communities around America that are expunging the records of those people arrested for marijuana. And today we say that we are sick and tired of a president who demonizes undocumented people. It is always easy for a bully to pick on minorities. It's the history of America, picking on minorities, showing how tough you are. Well, we don't believe in demonizing undocumented people. We believe in comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. We believe in providing immediate legal status for the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. And we believe that in America, this great country, we must never, never yank babies out of the arms of their mothers at the border. And that means we will have a humane border policy for those who seek asylum. Now, at a time in American history where so few have so much and so many have so little, we say to the top 1% and large profitable corporations that under a Sanders administration, you no longer are going to get huge tax breaks. In fact, you're going to start paying your fair share of taxes. Anybody here know how much Amazon paid in federal income tax last year? They paid zero, and that is true for dozens of other large profitable corporations. Well, I say to Mr. Bezos, the owner of Amazon, the wealthiest guy in the country, your good luck is about to end. You are going to start paying your fair share of taxes. When we, the message of our campaign is us, not me. Anybody know what that means? What does it mean? That's right. It means, this is what it means. I mean, it's all of us. And I'll tell you what it means. It means essentially, philosophically, we need to create a nation in which you care about my family and I care about your family, where we're all in it together. And it means something else. And nobody, you're never going to see this on TV, so glad you came even though it's hot. What our campaign is basically about is taking on the power structure of this country. Do you know what that means? So a lot of people can say, and it's a good thing to say, I want Medicare for all, that's great. But to get Medicare for all, you're going to have to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies. And they will spend, mark my words, you're the first to hear it. You're going to see on Georgia TV and on the radio 30-second ads, Bernie Sanders wants to take away your health care, raise your our effort to pass Medicare for all. That's because they make billions in huge. So if you want Medicare for all, Frederick Douglass, you all know Frederick Douglass is the great abolitionist. And he said something to the effect that progress never takes place without struggle. You're not going to grow a crop unless you plant the seeds. So if you think we're going to deal with climate change without taking on the incredible power of the fossil fuel industry, you're wrong. So together, we can and must take on the oil companies and the coal companies and the gas companies. Are you prepared to do that? If you want real criminal justice system, real criminal justice reform, we're going to have to take on the people who make money by locking up fellow Americans. Are we prepared to take on the prison industrial complex? If we want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, we're going to have to take on Walmart and the fast food industry and demand that they pay their workers a living wage. So my point is, we can be for all good things, but what makes this campaign, I believe, unique is the understanding that to achieve that goal of a government that works for all of us, we need a political revolution. That's what we need. And all of you know, any of you know anything about American history, you understand that real change never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up. 125 years ago, 150 years ago, you had workers in America who had no power at all. They were treated like animals, worked 60, 70 hours a week, 7 days a week, fired arbitrarily, no rights at all. But those brave workers stood up and they said, and sometimes they got beaten up, sometimes they got killed, but they said, we are human beings, we have dignity, we will not be treated with contempt, we will form unions. And 100 years ago and 50 years ago and today, Americans, black and white, said we will not accept segregation, we will not accept racism in America. And the civil rights movement was not just about the great leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he would tell you that. It was about millions of people prepared to go out on the streets, to get arrested, to get beaten, in some cases to get killed, in order to end racism in America. And that's how you have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And it's exactly the same for the women's movement. Exactly the same. 100 years ago, women in America didn't even have the right to vote. Women couldn't go to get the education they wanted. During a divorce, women got nothing. But women all over this country, against incredible odds, taking on the entire male establishment, they said that in our country, we as women will not be treated as second-class citizens. And they fought back. And based on what has happened in Alabama the other day, we still have a hell of a lot of fight in order to protect women's rights and the rights of women to control their own bodies. And I want you to just think about the gay movement. 30, 40 years ago, if you were gay in America, you kept that to yourself. It was a secret. People suffered, committed suicide as a result of that. But again, because people stood up and said, you know what, we're human beings, and we have the right to love anyone we choose to love. And those people who had the courage were beaten, they were harassed, they were humiliated. But at the end of the day, they won major, major victories. Nobody 20 years ago thought that gay marriage would be the law of the land. But they stood up and they fought back. So that is what change is about. What change is about is looking around you and say, are we satisfied that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any country? Are we satisfied that so few own so much? Are we satisfied that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people? Are we satisfied that women are unable in many states to control their own bodies? Are we satisfied that we have more people in jail than any other country? Are we satisfied that 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the prescription drugs they need? Are we satisfied that we have public school systems that are underfunded and underperforming? If we are not satisfied, we have got to stand up and change the damn system. So when I talk about us, not me, it's not just a good bumper sticker, which it is. But it's much deeper than that. It is the understanding that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, no matter how well-intentioned or honest he or she may be, no president can do it alone, because Wall Street and the drug companies and the insurance companies incredible power. That's the truth. Let's lay it out on the table. All right? But here is the good news. Now, I may not be a Nobel Prize-winning mathematician, but this I do know, that the 1%, despite all of their wealth and despite all of their power, are 1%. And last that I heard, 99% is a hell of a lot bigger number than 1%. Now, we're going to be running against a president who is not only the most dangerous president in modern American history, look, people can disagree on health care and the environment, education, but what every president historically has understood is the White House. As Americans. But today, we have a president who, for cheap political gain, is trying to divide us up based on the color of our skin, based on our gender, based on where we were born, based on our sexual, based on religion. And he thinks that if he can get one group to hate another group, he can kind of get reelected. Well, I got because our approach is exactly Donald Trump wants to divide us up, and we are going to do exactly the opposite. We are going to bring our people together. Black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, gay and straight, men and women, people born in this country, and immigrants. We are going to stand together, and we're going to defeat Donald Trump's divisiveness. Last point that I want to make, and I know that Trump did well in Georgia, and I want to speak to the people I want to speak to the people who voted for Donald Trump. I have an understanding as to why many of you did vote for Donald Trump. You're hurting. You're worried about your kids. You don't have any health care, maybe. You're worried that your job might go to China. You're worried that your kid can't afford to go to college. I understand that. And Donald Trump came along and he gave great speeches and he ran really good ads. And Donald Trump said in so many words, I hear your pain. I know what you're going through. And I will stand with the working class of this country when I am elected. Unfortunately, it turns out that Donald Trump is a pathological liar. And what he told the American people, he had no intention of fulfilling. You all remember that Donald Trump said, I, Donald Trump, I'm going to provide health care to everybody. Remember that? To everybody. Well, what he ended up doing is trying to throw 32 million Americans off of the health care that they have. And if it wasn't for the vote of the late John McCain in the Senate, he would have accomplished that. So for those of you who voted for Trump because he promised health care to everybody, please understand what he did. When Donald Trump was running, he said, I'm a different type of Republican. I'm not going to cut Medicare, and I'm not going to cut Medicaid, not going to cut Social Security. I beg those people in Georgia who voted for Trump, take a look at his last budget. $1.5 trillion in cuts to the Medicaid program over 10 years. Over $800 billion in cuts to Medicare and tens of billions of dollars in cuts to Social Security. He lied to you. Donald Trump said if elected president, his tax bill would not benefit the wealthy. Remember that? That's right. You got it. It is laughable because the tax bill, and he said, by the way, it will not impact me. I will not benefit from it. Well, it turns out that over a 10-year period, 83% of the benefits at the end of 10 years go to the top 1%. Donald Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. Well, he ended up hiring more billionaires and Wall Street executives than any president in the history of our country. Who holds the Constitution in disdain. Climate change. Yes, we can fix a broken criminal day. I'm asking for your help, but it's not just for me. I'm asking you to join our effort to stand together against the racism and the sexism and the homophobia, the xenophobia, and the religious bigotry we're seeing. I'm asking your help to stand together against the 1% and the power of corporate America. I'm asking your help to help create an economy and a government that works for every man, woman, and child in this country, and not just the wealthiest people. Thank you all very much.